Today I'm going to show you how to make a really easy meatloaf that's packed full of flavor. It's delicious! To make this easy meatloaf, you just need a few ingredients. We need 2 pounds of ground beef, which I've got in a big mixing bowl ready to go. 2 eggs, which I also have ready to go. Half of a large onion minced up, and I'm using a yellow onion because it's not quite as sweet. Half a cup of ketchup, and you'll need a little extra ketchup to drizzle on top of the meatloaf once it's formed. And then half a cup of barbecue sauce, 1 to 2 cups of oatmeal, and we'll talk about the oatmeal when we get to that part. You can use old-fashioned or quick oats, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then 2 teaspoons of seasoning salt. If you don't have seasoning salt, you can just use salt and pepper. Probably like a teaspoon and a half of salt, maybe half a teaspoon of pepper. And that's it. We're ready to make a meatloaf. We're going to start with 2 pounds of ground beef, and I like to kind of break it up with a fork before I put the ingredients in. And then we're going to add in 2 eggs. I'm going to go ahead and mix those eggs in. Now you can just dump everything in and mix it up that way. I do that quite a bit. But for the sake of instructing you and helping you, we'll take it a little slower today. And I'll probably get in there with my hands in a few minutes. After you put the eggs in, then we're going to add in half of a large onion. And I'm using yellow onion today because it's not as sweet. And along with that onion, we're going to add in half a cup of ketchup, and then half a cup of barbecue sauce. I'm using a Kansas City barbecue sauce for this. That came from Aldi. I'm going to mix that up. Meatloaf is one of my family's favorite meals, especially my oldest. He asks for meatloaf to be on the menu almost every week. So we have meatloaf quite a bit. Alright. Now we're going to add in 1 to 2 cups of oatmeal. I'm doing about 2 cups today because I'm pretty sure I have enough meat to warrant it. And then along with that oatmeal, we're going to add 2 teaspoons of seasoning salt. I said we would talk about the oats, and actually I want to talk about making this meatloaf gluten-free, because you can make it gluten-free. You don't have to, you can just make it regularly, but you can. So a part of that is the oatmeal. You can use old-fashioned oats or quick oats. I've used both, and it turns out great both ways. Now I use gluten-free quick oats. And then as far as making it gluten-free with the other ingredients, you definitely want to check your ketchup, check your barbecue sauce, check your seasoning salt especially, because seasonings can have wheat in them. So be sure to read your ingredient labels if you're trying to make this gluten-free, and just make sure that you have gluten-free ingredients for your meatloaf. And if you're making this gluten-free, I'm using Badia seasoning salt, because Badia, or is it Badia? Badia. I call it Badia. Or Badia. It might be Badia. I don't know. Anyway, all of their most of their seasonings, I think all of them are gluten-free, so, and they're delicious. And relatively inexpensive. We have found them at Walmart, and you can also find them on Amazon. Alright, we're at the point where I'm pretty sure I need to get my hands in there, because it's just easier to do that way. Alright, I'm just going to mix that meatloaf right into that, or that meat right in with the oats. And you're going to have a pretty moist meatloaf. making it this way. It makes delicious meatloaf sandwiches with cheese melted on them. So good. Alright, I think that's pretty good. Got that mixed up pretty good. I think we're ready for the next step. So we're just going to take our meatloaf, we're just going to dump it into a 9x13 pan. This pan is probably more 10x13. And you want to make sure that you greased your pan beforehand. And then we're just going to form it into our meatloaf. So you want it to be smooth on top. And kind of spread it out in your pan, but not entirely. I just press down on it a little and make sure the edges are even. Now, we have also used a sheet pan if we want to make it thinner and cook it faster. And we've also used cast iron skillet. Cast iron skillet works great. Okay, I think it's pretty darn good. I think we're ready to go. So once you have your meat in the, you have your meatloaf formed, then we're just gonna drizzle it with ketchup. And this is a totally optional step, but I definitely recommend it because it just gives it even more flavor. Okay, so our meatloaf is ready to go in the oven. Now instead of ketchup, my mom used to layer the top of her meatloaf with bacon strips, and that was really delicious too. So there are options if you're trying to make it a little bit healthier than the ketchup on top. But now we're going to stick this in the oven at 350 for about an hour, or until it comes to temp with a meat thermometer. Alright, I'm trying to save most of the meatloaf for dinner tonight because we usually serve it with green beans or salad, and we usually have potatoes, but I don't know that I'm in the mood for potatoes tonight. That has got so much flavor, it's unreal. Everything just comes together. I think I'll just eat that for lunch.